Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Yes, I know what you're thinking, I'm back. It's been a bit of a break for myself, just like it has been for Celtic as a football team. The international break means that content is quite difficult. You know that by now. You've been watching me for 4 or 5 years maybe, and you know that these parts are always the hardest to fill. But we're back today with some form of video. It might not be the greatest, it might not be the longest, but it gives us something to talk about that's Celtic related. So let's get into that and look at how all of the Celtic players who were called upon to their national teams done over this past international break. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit that big red subscribe button and the bell beside it. Make sure you get notified when all the content is coming, and if you subscribe, you're getting somewhat, I don't want to even say daily content because that's been 4 or 5 days since I even made a video, but you know what I mean. Press the big button, Celtic are back. It means that we're going to be talking about Celtic for the foreseeable future. No international break till when now? I can't mind, but aye, press subscribe and like as well if you like. So very quickly before we start talking about each individual player and how they done on the international break, let's just talk about Scotland for a moment. A very good international break for us as we got 2 wins, 6 points in the group, which has landed us in a very, very good position heading into that potential World Cup playoff. We had to beat Israel on Saturday night. It was tense, it was nervy, but somehow we got over the line. And on that note as well, Celtic players have came back fit, no injuries. You know, we don't have Callum McGregor or David Turnbull down and out with anything. They are fit, they're ready to go, and they helped. Well, Callum McGregor helped as Scotland put themselves in pole place for that World Cup playoff. It's going to be a big few months now for Scotland as we assess our players, we assemble our next squad, and we head into the final couple of games to try and secure that spot against Moldova, and also as we look forward to the potential opposition in that playoff spot. It's going to be wild. You know, there's been so little to scream about, shout about as a Scotland fan for years, and then you make the Euros, and now you're in a potential chance of making the World Cup. Suddenly it becomes a very different situation with Scotland, and I'm happy about that. Look, we might not do it in pretty ways, and sometimes I do question Steve Clarke, but at the end of the day we get results. We've won so many games in the bounce now. Our record has been phenomenal in these competitive matches. I really can't complain. I'd feel harsh if I was to complain right now. Ultimately we've done it, and last night might have been a bit of a slug as well. That might have been tough to watch. I ultimately thought we were going to, you know, cock it up the way we normally do, but we didn't. We fought hard and we got a goal and we stayed in the game. And now it's about taking that sort of momentum into the next break, because there is no time to slip up now. Because we've got a tough game against Denmark, which I pretty much want to write ourselves off a bit against, but against Moldova, it's going out and getting the job done. Ultimately, that's all we can ask for. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on the national team and a bigger kind of breakdown, you know where to go for that. And if you're not there by now, please make sure to head over to the Talk Scottish Football channel. We'll have our podcast up tomorrow, recapping the full break, hopefully. And yeah, we've been talking about the games, the Israel game, the Moldova, the Faroe Islands game and everything on that channel. So please make sure to head over there. So Celtic had 12 players out on international duty this break. I'm going to try and focus on the kind of 8 main players. I would say that there's kind of broken into 2 groups. You've got 8 players who are, you know, creme de la creme. That's harsh on some of the younger lads. But you've got 8 kind of senior players who we expect to see week in, week out. Then we've got the 4 guys like Connor has and Stephen Welsh, Adam Montgomery and Dane Murray, who are still kind of asserting themselves as Celtic players. I've not got a lot of time in this video and a lot of time in my day to go through absolutely everybody. So if you want to hear more about their breaks, then please make sure to go and check out, you know, some other news outlets across Twitter and such. None specifically to shout out off the top of my head, but we're going to focus on the 8 main guys. So let's start with Tom Rogic, a guy who of course we've been kind of questioning recently as to whether or not he's still up to the task at Celtic. He was dropped just before the break. We've seen a little change in the midfield, which seen him come out of the starting 11, and people saying maybe he's better as an impact sub. He was of course away with Australia and played twice in their matches of their World Cup qualifying against Oman and Japan, racking up a kind of decent amount of time for a guy that we always joke about can't make 90 minutes. He also played against Kyogo Furuhashi in the games as well. A 3-1 win over Oman and a 2-1 loss against Japan. Not too much coming from Tom Rogic, a pretty much bang average break for him. Not awful, not great. and not too much to talk about ultimately, hence the reason I've started with him. The thing about Rogic is now coming back from this international break, you're hoping that he comes back with a little bit of rejuvenation and is ready to come back into the squad with the kind of presence and talent that he was showing in the earlier stage of the season. He came back from the last international break and we all know he wasn't great. Do I expect to see him come into the starting lineup for our next game? I honestly don't. I think that he might keep him on the bench once more, but we all know he's a guy with talent and he just needs to perk himself up a bit again, because him and Turnbull were both looking really lazy. And I don't know too much. I'm not sat down and watched 180 minutes of the Australian national team. I'm not going to pretend I have. But if that's rubbing off there and then coming back to Celtic, it's not what we need. So hopefully he comes back perked up and ready to go once more. Now, you can already tell by the title of this video that it's going to be very Kyogo Furuhashi centric. We're going to be talking a lot about him, and we're going to come to the end of the video of a big story that's kind of broke that affects Celtic later on this season. But Kyogo, once again, grabbing the headlines for his respective team. He does it for Celtic and he does it for Japan. He played 31 minutes against Saudi Arabia in the first game of the break, but the big talking point came in the second game where they beat Australia 2-1. They beat Tom Rogic's Australia, and a lot of people saying thanks to him. He's been getting a lot of plaudits, a lot of credit. Japanese legend Kazuki Honda, I believe, was questioning why he didn't start the game, but he came on for a half hour at the end of the game, and ultimately his pressure and his determination was what's seen them win the game and walk away with the 3 points. It leaves Japan, I believe, in a very good position as well. But Kyogo is just lighting up everywhere he goes at the moment, and that sort of winning mentality that he brought on the pitch for Japan is exactly what he's brought back to Celtic since returning from his layoff. Coming back against Leverkusen, yes, we were battered, let's just be honest about that. You can still see the difference he made in terms of how we play football. And the difference he made against Aberdeen, grabbing that goal as well, is huge, and it can't be underestimated. I've seen a lot of people still trying to write off Kyogo Furuhashi as a kind of lucky player and he's looking better than he actually is. I don't like that conversation at all, because we're looking at a genuine quality footballer who has lit up the league so far, and, you know, quite rightly is getting all this praise and credit that he deserves. It's good to see that he's transferred that form over to the national team, if he has done as much as what the plaudits are making out. But ultimately, he's coming back fit as well, which I'm very happy about. The last international break seen him go down injured, and that's how we missed him. Now he comes right back to Celtic, hopefully with the same levels of encouragement and excitement. And it takes us into a good run of form now, because we need to kick on. We need to do well, and we're relying on him, the guy who's scored how many of our goals so far this season? 8 of our goals so far this season. He's the main man, and you know what? Bring him back. I can't wait to see him. Ultimately, that's why I'm glad this break is over, to see wee Kyogo again. Now let's put into the same bracket here 4 of the players. We'll have Albion Ajeti, Carl Starfelt, Liel Abada and David Turnbull. 3 of those 4 players didn't feature at all over the course of the international break, which you can look at as a positive for Celtic. You know, they're once again coming back fit. Ajeti is pretty much our only option outside of Kyogo as a striker. We've got Starfelt, who is week in, week out in the starting 11 for Celtic. And Liel Abada as well, David Turnbull as well, who is a player that is in the team week in, week out, and with a lot of quality. Now, Turnbull not getting into the Scotland team was pretty much expected. I think a lot of people were crying out for him when it got to the nitty gritty in both games. You know, if you need a goal, bring on someone like Turnbull. But right now it kind of is understandable. He hasn't been on form recently. He's been a bit off the boil, and I can kind of understand why Clark left him out of both games, not even bringing him on as a sub. Now, when you're desperate for a goal, I wouldn't mind it, and Clark does frustrate me with that, but Turnbull at the moment hasn't been too hot, and that is understandable. But what this should present him, not getting a sniff in that national team, and with questions being raised over his head as a Celtic player at the moment, that should really give him a kick up the backside. I think we need to expect Turnbull now to come back from this break and kick on. He has been questionable alongside Rogic at times, and he's someone that offers so much to this Scotland team. He could offer so much, and he's got a big future on this Scotland team, but he needs to kick on, he needs to play a little bit better. And I think if we do change it up to, say, have McGregor and someone else in the midfield, it allows Turnbull maybe to go forward and be a bit more expressive while having the security behind him. So hopefully this run of games presents that opportunity for Turnbull, and we see more of him. Abada, he only featured for, I think, 20 minutes or such over the break. He came off the bench for Israel in the last game, not against Scotland. which we'll come out and talk about near Bitton in a minute, but once again didn't contribute too much. A guy working his way up to being a starting a sort of player and a more key player in that Israel team. You look at the front three at Israel, the likes of De Boer and Solomon and all those guys, and Zahavi and who have it. You know, it's a hard sort of front three to get into. Israel, especially for a 19-year-old guy. So yeah, I'm not too surprised. He didn't feature too much the last break either. It would have been nice to see him play more, but am I complaining that one of our best attacking talents is coming back fit and healthy? No, I am not. Talking about Israel, let's talk about near Bitton against Scotland. He played, of course, the whole 90 minutes. We've seen him in that game. Couple of decent moments, and that for me was booked. Yellow card. Every time I watch him play for Israel, I hate him even more. I really, really do. I find it hard to like him, even as a Celtic player. But he played 90 minutes there, and he played 90 minutes against Moldova, where he had a particularly good game. A 2-1 win for Israel. It was massive for them. But yeah, look, near Bitton is near Bitton, isn't he? It doesn't matter how he performs in these international breaks. He could go out and play like Sergio Ramos, and he could go out and play like near Bitton, and you know he's got to come back and be in that exact same position as a Celtic player. We've seen him come into the starting 11 against Aberdeen. Now, will he continue that? I have a feeling he might, but once again, in the grand scheme of things, it's never going to change where Bitton is as a Celtic player. He's always going to be near Bitton. He's going to be there. He's always going to be there, and he's going to put in the team whenever feels necessary, the manager feels necessary. That's what's going to happen. So near Bitton away having the break that you'd expect him to. And finally, Callum McGregor, he started and played the 90 against... did he play the 90? Did he play the whole game? I'm trying to remember if he came off. He did play the 90, he did, and he played the last 20 odd minutes of the game last night against the Faroe Islands as well, and McGregor doing McGregor things. I thought he had a very stellar, very good international break. And he just shows the quality every time he's on the ball. I feel like he's so comfortable, and he's now just getting better and better as this season goes on. Of course, we missed him for a couple of games as well, but he's came back, and I feel like he's not skipped a beat. Came on the park last night, made a difference. He did. He was one of the players in the park when we got the goal. I thought his presence was needed. There was a lot of people flying about on Twitter, quotes about how we needed McGregor, and it was all correct. We did need him on the park. I was glad he was. A lot of questions were raised when he didn't start last night against Scotland. People going, why has he dropped McGregor? I was personally very happy he didn't start McGregor at the time, because I thought to myself, Faroe Islands, Scotland should be winning this game with Callum McGregor in the team or not, and I would rather have McGregor coming back safe and sound. No injuries, no knocks, no nothing. So I was happy he wasn't in the team, but as the game went on and we struggled and we looked worse, I was like, oh Christ, we do need McGregor in this team. So it was good to see him come on the park. He made the sub and got McGregor on, and he did have an impact, I thought, when he came on the park, but he was particularly impressive, I thought, against Israel. A solid performance, comfortable in that midfield. Once again, McGregor's never a kind of a player for Scotland particularly that stands out amongst others, because you can look at McGinn and Gilmore, they stood out more. They did stand out more. Shows the quality of our midfield three. They stood out more than McGregor for me, but McGregor alongside that still had a very good international break and still looked good in that midfield on Saturday night. So yeah, McGregor's back safe and sound, and that's what matters. So what was the story I wanted to talk about then at the end of the video that I kind of dropped earlier? Well, Celtic apparently are facing missing Kyogo Furuhashi a little bit later this season due to an extra international break for the Asian Confederation. That's a nice rhyme, that, the Asian Confederation. Yeah, apparently he could miss 2 games in that kind of crunch point in the season, which is not ideal. And it puts Celtic in a bit of a dilemma now. I don't know how we'll go about this. I don't know how Kyogo will go about this. I don't think it'll be as straightforward as Celtic sitting down Kyogo and going, listen, you're no going, we're keeping you here, you're not going to play for Japan. I don't think it'll be as simple as that. We're looking at a very realistic prospect of missing Kyogo for 2 big games later on this season. So of course the Scottish football season stops in January for the winter break, but after the winter break there is extra qualifiers on for the Asian teams. That includes, of course, Kyogo Furuhashi, which means he could be missing 2 massive games after the winter break from late January into February. Not ideal. What games are they? So late January, early February means that Kyogo could potentially miss a game at Tynecastle. Yep, Tynecastle, a place where we don't do well, and we didn't do well earlier this season. He could miss the Hearts game against Tynecastle, and he could miss a game as well at Celtic Park against Dundee United. The same Dundee United who came to Celtic Park and took points from us earlier this season as well. So 2 games that we've already dropped points in, that Kyogo could potentially be missing later on this season. It is a kind of nightmarish scenario for Celtic that I don't think presents many opportunities for us to get out. It's a word of warning for everyone who will see the news over the next couple of days and see the news close at the time. You might miss it altogether. I just caught it by chance. I would have never have known until late January, like, oh Christ, Kyogo can't play for us. But the message is there, the news is there, and he could be out for Celtic come those couple of games. Not ideal. I would love Ange to just go, like, listen, son, right, we want to go for this title. Now, Celtic, we don't know what position Celtic will be in come that point. We could be miles behind whoever's top of the table. We could be miles ahead whoever's second of the table. We never know what position Celtic are going to be in come that point in the season. That doesn't matter to me. I would love to have Kyogo available for 2 difficult games. Tam Courts has Dundee United performing very well. Hearts are just doing spectacularly well this season, beyond any expectation. So yeah, it's not great. It's not great at all. And it, it will have to also, if you read into the news a little bit more, face a rush home for a bigger game, a game against Rangers, which is kind of early April time, because he'll be on international duty, of course, in the March break. But I think that will come into just kind of standard with everybody away at March. But those 2 games are the key talking point at the moment. What will happen? We'll have to wait and see closer at the time, and hope for the best. Hopefully, he doesn't go. Selfishly, sorry Japan, hopefully it doesn't go. That's it for today's video. I'm glad to be back. I'm hoping it's good enough. It's kind of a rush. I'm away to see freaking Kasabian tonight, so I need to go. Like and subscribe. See you all next time.